speaker from 𝐂𝐥𝐻𝐿 with us. Let us welcome them. We have Sir Rishi Ravi. Sir has 16 years of experience in the field of software testing and quality assurance. He has graduated from SSM College of Engineering, Kumarampalayam. He is known to be highly focused, motivated, and detail-oriented. We have Sir Chandan Prakash GR, a lead technical solution architecture, a dedicated and passionate man at work, a very knowledgeable and spontaneous worker. So Nitin PK, cloud engineer with demonstrated history of working in the IT and service industry, skilled in Linux system administration, hardware installation, Amazon VPC, IT hardware support, and Amazon EC2. Strong IT professional graduate from Kerala University, Thiruvananthapuram. Ma'am Meera Singh, Strategic Partnership Manager. Sir Arun Reddy, our speaker for today. A tech leader with 20 years of experience in the field of technology, infrastructure with data centers and cloud, specialized in designing, building, or testing infrastructure and cloud infrastructure focused solutions aligned with business requirements through DevOps, SRE, service operations, service management procedures, and ITIL aligned processes. We thank you all for being with us today here. Now I hand over the program to our speaker.
Hey, hi, very good evening, everyone. Good evening, folks, and good evening, VIT. Okay, so we have our attendees, Arun sir, Chandra Prakash sir, Rishi sir, and today the topic will be not load balancing. We will be giving session on basic and fundamentals of cloud labs.
All right, everyone. My name is Arun. Meera, we started, or how do we do, Meera?
So this will be started by Arun sir. He will be giving you all the instructions and sessions on our basic and fundamentals of cloud labs. And also after this session, we will be having one hands-on practice assessment test. And in this, we will be awarded student for the top performer will be awarded by the Amazon voucher.
Ma'am, before that, sorry for interrupting, ma'am. If it is possible, we just want to take a snap, ma'am. Our faculty coordinators, they will also turn on their webcam. And if it's possible, from your side, could you turn on your webcam, ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Arun sir, thank you, sir, for accepting your invitation.
Thank you. Pleasure is same here.
So now we can start session.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when we initially started, there was the topic which was announced, which is on load balancing. It's a very interesting topic and very vast topic. But since when I spoke to Meera about the demography of the people who will be attending the sessions, these are students who are in the second year, third year. So what I wanted to focus is initially let's focus on the basics and fundamentals. Then probably when we jump onto load balancing and other things would be very good. We at 𝐂𝐥𝐻𝐿 believe in doing it, learning by doing it rather than just learning as a theory. So everything we do is hands-on. So everybody have received their invite where they would need to get into this freelabs.𝐂𝐿.io and enroll themselves. Have everybody done that? Has everybody got into this and have they signed up? Probably show of hands if somebody can confirm that. Meanwhile, if you can enable the chat, it will be really good.
Yeah, I'll share the link on chat box also.
No, there is no chat box enabled for me. For others, is the chat box enabled?
No.
No, Arun, I'm also
No.
not seeing the
Not able to
chat
see the
box.
chat box.
Yes, somebody from the VIT team, if you can enable the chat box, there are quite a few discussions, questions, and all those things my team will also address. Can we quickly?
Yeah, Jashvita, please do check that.
I think Q&A is enabled, not the chat box, but
Sorry, we are facing a technical glitch right now. We'll work on the chat box.
all right. Jashvita, is everybody expected to log in using their laptops, right? Everybody would have access to internet, and they are. So if I can show them how to sign up. Rishi, have we seen any signups so far, or no signups yet?
Yeah, I'm seeing there are a couple of people already signed up, and
Alright.
I'm checking the other one.
Yeah, team, all you need to go to is freelabs.nuepro.io. It's free labs. Nuepro is my organization and IO. So that is what you have to do. And you have to go do a sign up. If you click on sign up, where you could give your username, password on all the details, and you'll get access to it. Once you enroll, you will get access to our labs.
Guys, you
So
can
I'll
check that in chat box also. I
Yeah,
just share
so
the link.
the chat box is not enabled, is what I feel. I see. The chat box is not enabled. If you can see, I don't see the chat box.
Jyoti, I have forwarded the link now. You can forward in your group.
Yeah.
I have mailed
Yeah,
also.
doing, ma'am. Yeah, doing, ma'am.
So looks like people are getting it. So Mira, let's not worry about that. Meanwhile, I'll also give a bit of introduction about myself as well as the organization. We'll expect the users to complete their sign up by that time. Will that be fine? All right, guys. So let me first probably introduce myself. This is a picture of myself. I recently was in Srinagar. This is not any foreign locality. This is in India. I was in Srinagar, Jammu Kashmir. So this place exactly is called 𝐂𝐥𝐮𝐻𝐿. It is in the middle of the Dal Lake, where you need to go in on a boat and then access this place. We went there very early in the morning, and the sun was bright, and it was a very nice photo. I thought, as an icebreaker, I'll use my photo. Yeah, not great at looks, but the overall picture looks good. About myself, I'm the head of delivery and operations with Nuepro. Nuepro is a hands-on labs platform. What I do, I take care of multiple units. You could say one is on pre-sales, where we work closely with Mira and team, who are part of the sales team, so that we work with the customers. I also manage the platform. Rishi is here. He heads the platform, as well as he heads the multiple lab solutions. I also manage support. Chandra Prakash is here. He is the head of the support organization. And I also manage the entire lab build solution. So Rishi, who heads the platform, also leads the lab build solution, part of a lab build solution team. As part of the delivery and operations, I also need to manage the revenue and cost management for the organization. About 20 years of experience. Been working with Nuepro since 2020. Prior to that, I've been working for organizations like Sebo Corporation, IBM, Deloitte Consulting, Bharti Airtel, and Oracle. This is a short intro about myself. About Nuepro. So Nuepro, as I told, is a hands-on labs platform. What we believe in is anything which needs to be learned, it has to be learned hands-on, otherwise it's not fruitful. So typically what happens is, even if it is in the college and other things, there is a need for a skill gap. There is a need for any kind of skills. You go through a training. Most of the trainings are content led, or most of the things which you guys go through, until unless you don't do the actual labs, you might get certified, but are you really skilled or not? Obviously, that is not there. So whether you would get jobs or whether the organizations will be able to place these people onto the projects is always a challenge. So that is where the skill gap arises even after the training happens. That is what Novipro is trying to solve through their offerings like playgrounds, projects, and assessments, where the content would still remain the same, which the organizations or the universities use, where your faculty, whatever they teach, would still be the same. What we would introduce is to adapt to the hands-on learning through playgrounds. It is just like your regular labs which are there. Those are playground labs where you have to go and build and learn hands-on. Additionally, you would also get something projects. Projects are nothing but exercises or scenarios or case studies which you need to learn. So only then you'll effectively learn any kind of a skill. And if you want to demonstrate that skill, you will take assessments. And effectively, once you finish the certification, you will have the hands-on experience, which you will specifically worked on projects as well as an automated assessment done. So in that way, you will be job ready, or you will be in a better position for that particular skill. So what exactly is playgrounds? Playgrounds is nothing but real world environments which are installed and configured with softwares and governance policies. These are predefined for the learning content. The learning content could be anything. It could be a lecture which your professors would be giving. It could be a YouTube video, or it could be Udemy or anything. There you would learn the skill. When it comes to projects is you take the same playground lab and you create a scenario, or you would create a case study and make people solve that scenario or case study. That will effectively be a project. Further to it, if you are talking about assessment, is the same project. If you don't give them enough hints and tell them to actually perform that activity, and so you will get an automated result if the user has successfully performed that activity or not. And that is where the things come into the picture. A little bit of sales pitch about our organization. It's easy to create. You'll be onboarded as a tenant if any of our customers sign up, and you will be able to roll out multiple types of labs on a single platform, and you'll be able to centrally manage all the users from the single platform. And it is completely online. All the labs would be delivered through a web browser. At the same time, you will be able to centrally manage them, and you'll have a centralized place for billing and reports. How you can consume our labs platform? It can be through an API integration, or through our LMS, which is there. You could consume the services using your own learning management system platform, with integrated to our platform, either through an API or through an LMS integration. So this is a quick intro about our organization. Just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware about our platform and what our capabilities are before we jump on to our practical live session. All right, so all you could do is probably the show of hands. There is an option which says raise your hand or something like that. All you could do is, can you just raise your hand by doing this show of hand to say that you have access to this labs platform where you're already logged in? Can you just see? I just want to see how many people have logged in and how many are still not able to. I see a few of them. I see one of them. Anybody else? So how do we go about is we would be doing the session practically So actually, each and every person will have an option to go perform as we speak. And at the end of the session, you will go through at least 3 fundamental exercises where you would be learning on few cloud computing aspects. And after finishing the session, you will be given 3 assessments based upon what you have gone through during this session. If you successfully finish that assessment, all right. If you have successfully finished that assessment, obviously there will be many who could be possibly successfully finishing the assessment. We'll see who has finished it much more quicker and all those things. So by tomorrow 6 p.m. we will get to know the results and we'll announce the results. Obviously there would be a appreciation as well as a goodie given to the person who successfully who comes first. That is what we intend to do. Anybody would want to just from the VIT side confirm that we could start the hands-on session? Yes, somebody from the
Yes,
VIT
sir,
side.
please carry on.
Yeah, all right. All right, so you guys are given this site, you might have successfully logged in. I've also logged in and you have got this site. And if you do a drop down here, you would have a course which is called AWS Cloud Practitioner. If you guys could start accessing it. All right. So so this is the beauty. This is the platform where we will each and every of you would get access to an AWS console. Each and every person will have a dedicated AWS console, and you will be able to access it. What does this AWS? These 3 assessments is right now restricted to you guys. You will be able to take this assessment after this session till tomorrow 6 p.m. But each assessment probably, if somebody is well versed, would require only 20 to 30 minutes. But somebody who would be doing it for the first time might take an hour or something like that. So you could take these assessments after we finish the session. And so what does this lab contain? It contains an access to the AWS cloud platform. And what we have done is, since this session is only meant for basics of cloud computing, we have enabled only few services which you could access from this platform. If at all you would sign up onto AWS on your own using your credit card, you might get access to all the services. And obviously it will start billing against your credit card or a debit card. Here in this, what we have given is a free lab session where we have enabled only few set of services. And obviously, at the end of this session, we'll disable those services so that our training and hands-on labs practice will be effective, but at the same time will not be incurring a lot of cost. So without any further delay, let's start on the hands-on part. So all you have to do is click on Start Lab. So what I'll be doing is I'll be using a different type of lab, which I have a better access to. So all you need to do is there is a this link which says hands-on AWS. Please click on them, and you can just give Start Lab. So this will actually go and initiate a login to the NuvaPro platform, and it will get you a credential where you could access to the cloud. I expect everybody to perform this activity as in when they're talking to us. All right. So now the lab has started, and you will have a place called Jump to Console. There are multiple tabs which are there. So obviously the instructions of the lab is there, of all the things which are allowed. I'll talk about it in the later on point of time. You also have an option for access. Here you will have the login ID, login password, and a sign-in link, and an ARN. ARN, also I'll tell you about what exactly is an ARN. And there is obviously lab info, which could be possibly blank. Chandra, just confirm if everybody have initiated the logins from the platform side. Are you able to view them?
So yeah, some of the
Yes,
participants are able to create the lab. It is in progress.
Yeah. So probably we'll wait for at least 80% of them to have create complete, and then probably it will be easy for us to proceed. Otherwise, they might be still wondering why the lab has not started. So meanwhile, I'll just give you instructions. There are, when it comes to AWS, what happens is I'll log in just to talk about what exactly they'll be getting in the lab. All right. So what is AWS platform? AWS is a cloud platform. It's a cloud service provider. It's a public cloud service provider, which means that anybody could sign up and start using the AWS services. Why is cloud famous? Cloud is famous because it's not that it will make your cloud, the infrastructure services very much available. It is our ability to programmatically access the cloud services it's why the AWS is famous. So when you want to do any kind of basic building blocks of the cloud, obviously you would require the infrastructure to be deployed wherever it is required. Wherever it is required. So AWS has data centers in all these regions. So for example, in US, it is in Virginia, Ohio, California, and Oregon. In Asia, it is literally in every other predominant country, be it Mumbai, Osaka, Seoul, Singapore, Sydney, Tokyo. And when it comes to Europe, there are multiple regions. And of course, there are few regions where you would need additional access to gain access, which means that AWS can cater to your geography and will be able to spin up any kind of service, cloud service, which could be used. The basic building blocks of any kind of, if you at all you want to launch any kind of application, you would require the infrastructure as a service, which could be basically your server, storage, and network. That is called as infrastructure as a services. But when it goes to one level higher, where you would require the infrastructure, the compute, storage, and network to be configured and made available in a certain format, which is predefined and pre-configured by AWS. That is called platform as a service. And if I'm availing few services which is over and above the platform where the software is also predefined and pre-configured, and that is where you will get the software as a service. So before I start, I just want to check with the support team if most of the labs are created. Everybody are able to start the labs.
Yeah, I can see labs are started, Arun. I request more participants to launch the lab and confirm that you have launched the lab to continue this session.
Yeah, and for purposes for us to this one, please make the region as Mumbai always, because we have enabled the services only in the Mumbai region. Other regions, if you access, you will probably might not be able to access. So please access only Mumbai region. And obviously, each and every one, once they log in, they'll have their ARN, which is mapped. ARN is nothing but a particular resource unit which will be meant for you to use this cloud services, which will be mapped to you. And this ARN, you can find this ARN over here. This is the unique resource unit, which will be mapped to you. Any kind of resources which you create on cloud will be in this particular ARN. And so let's start with the compute. In AWS, the compute is predominantly used in a service called EC2, which is nothing but Elastic Compute 2. The reason is there was an earlier version of EC1 or Elastic Compute, which was not that popular. From at least past 7-8 years, EC2 has become quite popular, and this will give you access to multiple compute services. So what does the compute really mean? Compute is nothing but your, say for example, compute part audio. I mean, for your laptop, you have i7 Intel i7 processor or Intel i5 processor or AMD processor that would have a certain kind of power behind it. The CPU power which is there, it could be in terms of number of cores or number of threads. You would have your compute. So in order to have a greater capacity for using it for kind of services which you want to run, if you want to run a very simple website which could be used by 2 or 3 people, probably you would go for a very small compute service. But if you want to do any kind of deep learning or big data kind of things, you need a very powerful service, which could be probably about 16 vCPU or 32 vCPU. You need that kind of compute. So in such situations, you would have to create compute based upon your business requirements. The business requirements, obviously, your developers will be able to tell how many threads they would want, how many users will be accessing. Your product managers will tell about how much of load we are expecting. What would be the load on Monday morning? What would be the load on Friday evening? What would be load on Saturday and Sunday? They'll tell you the load, and that is how we would come to the topic in the later some other day where we'll be talking about load balancing. But before load balancing and other things, we need to build this basic building blocks, and that is where this compute and storage and other things will come into the picture. All right, so let's start on the compute. So say for example, when you want to create a particular server, all you need to do is go to the instance in the left panel and do a launch instance. There you will be able to create a server. Say for example, I'm telling a server name to be VIT test, just because I'm talking to you guys and I'm doing a test. Here you have option to create multiple servers. Just give me a moment. I have a bit of cough. So there are multiple catalogs which you could a catalog of multiple server types which we could use. What are the popular server types which you have? You could have a Linux machine, which could be Red Hat, Linux, SUSE Linux, or any kind of open source machines like Ubuntu or CentOS. Or you could have a Windows machine. It could be Windows 2019 or Windows 2022 or Windows 2016. You would not find Windows 10 kind of a desktop machine. The reason is Windows 10 would have a different license mechanism. You will not get it on a cloud platform. Similarly, there would be many organizations where they would have created a custom operating system using the basic operating systems where they would have customized. So all these things that is where it says that it is including thousands of applications and OS images. So you could use any of these images and build a machine. So this is the first type. The second type which we need to think about is what should be the size of machine. So you'll be able to say, yes, let me use Ubuntu machine, you will obviously be given some kind of an options here. So this is the Ubuntu machine which we'll be using. The next part is possibly is the instance type. Instance type is nothing but what would be the size of the machine which you wanted to use. The basic one you could see is T2 micro, but if you see there are multiple machines. So what does a T2 micro have? It has a 1 vCPU and 1 GB of RAM which will be used. Similarly, if you have multiple such things, and each, say for example, here in T2 micro, it will be charging me $0.0124 per hour if I'm using it. And if I'm using in on a Windows, it will be charging me 0.017. Similarly, if I choose, say for example, a larger machine like C5 4x large, which is nothing but a 16 vCPU, 32 GB RAM machine. So this will be charging me about almost 0.6 USD per hour, which means that if I use this for 10 hours, I'll be charged $6.8 as compared to a T2 micro, which is a basic one, which possibly for a training, which I use. If I use it for 10 hours, it will still charge me probably just $0.12. So for testing purposes, make sure that you use only T2 micro because we have enabled only T2 micro as a thing to be used for the testing purposes. And obviously there is a next one called key pair. So you could give the name of the key pair. The key pair is nothing but the one which will help you to log into the machine. So if you want to log into a machine, you need to have a key pair. And then comes your network settings. Network settings is where you would be using this. See, normally what happens is you need to have multiple network divisions where you want your server to be hosted. If at all you would want to have a network which is meant to be having a website which is publicly available, you need to have one kind of network, whereas an application server which will be just processing the incoming request, which need not be in the public, you need to place it in a different network setting. It will be private. So in that way, you will be able to decide and design what kind of network location which you will be using. For this particular thing, you don't really have to change the network. Let's have a default network setting. And obviously make sure that you click on allow SSH traffic, because since you're creating a Ubuntu machine, you need to allow the SSH traffic where you will be logging in using PuTTY. And what is the storage which you would want to allocate? I'll allocate by default 8 GB. If I want an higher storage, you could add higher storage. But since I'm using it for the testing purposes, I'll be using only 8 GB of storage. And this also comes into the picture. There are ways and means where you could use different types of storages. Okay. There is each and every storage would have a different what we call commercials against it. Say, for example, if I use a GP2, it's a quite efficient storage, but the cost of using GP2 is higher as compared to GP3. The cost is slightly lower. And if I used, say, for example, throughput optimized like HDD, it is much more cheaper. So let's put a glance onto why exactly we need to really plan well when it comes to launching the servers. So what I'll do is just for showing you guys, I'll be just opening the pricing of AWS. This is anybody can do it. There's something called as AWS pricing calculator. You guys don't have to right now do it. I'm just showing you of how does it change. Say, for example, this is a AWS calculator which is publicly available. You don't really have to have access, but you could find out. If at all, I'm choosing Mumbai as my region. And say, for example, EC2 as one of the service. All right. I'm using Linux as a platform, and I give T2.micro as one of the instance which I'm doing because I'm using the same instance I'm using already. And say, for example, I say the utilization will be 100%, 100% for the entire month. And I'll be going, I don't want, I just wanted to use it on demand. I don't want to do for the reservation for 3 years or this one. So I'll do the on-demand part of it. Here, say, for example, I use a storage which is GP2. I'll use 8 GB. And I do a save. Similarly, once again, another thing, another server. I'll configure. I'll use the same T2 micro. I'll use it for on-demand itself, and I'll use 8 GB. Whereas the storage type is hard disk, not static state drive. And I'll do a save service. And end of the day, if I do a view this one, it will give you that monthly I'll be incurring $19.42 if I'd be running the services. Whereas here, the monthly cost when I use the storage type to be SSD, I'll be incurring 9.96. Whereas if I use HDD, I'll be incurring 9.46. So this is a difference in terms of how much the storage would cost. So you need to efficiently choose which storage to use and what. If your input output is very basic, you could possibly choose HDD. Or if your input output needs a fast order disk, which will cater to your input output request, you can use GP2. Since we are using it for the testing purpose, I'll just choose go by the default GP2 instance itself. And then I'll say I'll also need to create a key pair called test. So let me do that. I'll create a pair called test. So this key pair test PPK is very important. You need to have this test whatever is the PPK which gets downloaded, that will be the one which will be used for logging into the server. And I'll create a launch instance. So if I go back to the instances which I've created, see here the user, the server is getting created. It shows as pending state. And if I do a refresh, it might still show pending. After a while, it will show up and running, and the server will be up and running. So I'll just, yeah, right now the server is created. So what does this server have? So the server has an ID, which will be an ID, and it is identified by VIT test because I've given this as a server name. It has a public IP address. It has a private IP address, and it also have a public DNS. And what is the and it also has a host name. What is the addressing range? It is using IPv4 addressing range. And what is the instance type? It is T2 micro because this is the instance type we have used. And what is the platform it is using? It is using Ubuntu, and AMI is nothing but the OS image type where this Ubuntu was this one standardized on. That's the AMI ID. And so there is and there's a key pair. What is the key pair does it use? That is using the test.ppk, which I have downloaded. And yeah, so you have this all those things, and since it is up and running, and it is it has a public IP address. Either I could take this public IP address or take the public DNS name and log in. So let me log in. Not sure if I have PuTTY installed. Yeah, I have a PuTTY app. And since it is SSH, I should be using the auth keys. Rishi, I might need your help here because I've not done this login since a long time. What is the option which you have to go to enable that PPK?
Yep. So you have created the key pair, right?
Yes.
To access.
Yeah.
AUTH auth. Can you click on auth? Yeah. Yeah. You have to browse the filer.
Yeah. Got it. All right, guys. So if you already have a PuTTY, you need to download this one called PuTTY, and you have to put the host name. And if you go to under SSH, if you go to auth, you'll be able to browse and put the PPK which you have created. And if just open, you will be able to log in. And you'll be able to log into the machine. So see, if you see here, this is a Linux machine which I have created. So this is the way you would actually create the machines, create the server. And this is a T2 micro size machine, and you will be able to log in. And since it is using a global address, you will have a public IP which will get assigned. Say, for example, if I shut down this machine and start it, the IP address will change. All right, so let me go do a action and says stop instance. I'll give a stop instance. It will actually stop that machine. And if you see here, the machine got disconnected. All right. So let me see if the machine is completely stopped. Successfully stopped, it says, as an action. Let me see. The machine has to be in a different state. So the machine is completely stopped. Obviously, the machine is not responding because the machine is stopped. You have an option to go start the machine once again. So the machine will get started and it will give us an option to go find out whether the machine is started or not. If you see the options over here, the properties of the machine is still not there. The IP address is still not assigned. Earlier it used to have 43 or something IP address. Let's see what is the new IP address which it will get and generated. All right, if you see here, earlier it was 43 dot something, now it is 13 dot something. So this is a new IP address. So if I go do a restart session, obviously it will not do because that IP address is different. Whereas if I copy it and put it in a new PuTTY session, well, I put this in Audible IP address. and obviously with auth, I browse the same key pair and add it. I'll be able to open and I'm able to log in. All right. So this is about the compute where you could choose the size of compute for you to for you to host, and there are different ways to see it. Say, for example, there are situations where you would want to do a clone of this. Say, for example, you did a custom development of certain things. You could do a clone. So what you could do is you could just stop this machine, and then you could do a clone. So you could go create a new server, and you can say that please clone the machine based upon this. So I launch an instance name, I'll name it as test1. All right. I think it is part of the instance only. So I could use it as a create image. If I create an image, I can name it as test. And I can create an image. And next time, if I launch the new instance, obviously you can go choose that particular image and create an additional server, which will be nothing but a mirror image of this machine. So just one.
And choose that my AMIs.
My AMIs. And by you see here. Here is the image which you've already shared, and you have. And you can choose the same key pair which you could use. And use the create a security. You can just choose the existing one, default one. And you can use the same configuration of storage and click on launch instance. Initiation failed because it is pending. Looks like it is still being created because we just now created. That is the reason it has failed. But if you do the same thing after some time, the creation of the identical server with a new name can be done. So this is about the server part, where you would create different types of servers. Always make sure that when you are choosing the server types, you go by the pricing which it included. Of course, in this lab, you don't have to worry. This is provided from our platform, so we will take care of that part. But in the real life, everybody has to do some kind of planning to understand how much it will cost and start using the services. And if at all if you have to create more than one server, obviously make sure that you are talking about multiple sizes, from where, what type of servers it has to be, what hierarchy it has to be set up, whether it is a 2-tier architecture, 3-tier architecture, whether it is for database or whatever it is, you should be able to decide. So this is about servers. The next part which you could possibly look into is on let's see what we could do. Let's go to the console. We'll do an S3. S3 is nothing but the third version of storage on the AWS platform. So S3 storage is one of the popular storage. Why is storage very important? Say, for example, if you take a small 4 GB pen drive, it costs probably, you can say, 300 rupees, 400 rupees. But if you want the same pen drive to be available online, there are multiple ways and means you can make it available online. So that 4 GB of storage, if you want it to be accessed by only one person, you can connect that pen drive to your laptop and it is accessible. So you don't have to spend anything additional. But if you say that the pen drive should be connected to the laptop and some 20 people needs to access, you need to make that storage very sturdy so that it runs very fast and it caters to all the 20 people who could access simultaneously. And then if you say that the 20 people who are accessing that pen drive or that storage would be available in multiple are from various parts of the globe, then you need to make sure that this pen drive or this storage is accessible in all the geographies, and the throughput, if somebody wants to access it, should be very faster. Otherwise, the user experience will be bad. Then you need to have a much more faster storage, faster IOPS needs to be provided to that particular storage. And then if I say this storage should be accessible 24/7, then you can say you can't rely upon your laptop. It has to be hosted on a data center kind of setup where multiple sources of power is available, multiple sources of network is available, so that it is always available. So if you have taken that 300 rupees drive and if you create all the additional aspects of it, which is called as non-functional requirements, the 300 rupees one will become almost a $300 per month per user kind of a charge, which will be there. End of the day, the technology is the same. Technology of accessing it and storing the data is same, but the way it has been used based upon your business requirements, it keeps on changing, and that is where storage comes as a very important. Today's storage is the data is, they call it as the oil that runs the entire internet engine. And everybody are there today online just because of data. It is stored in one way or the other. We generate a lot of data. Our identity is transacted using data. So data becomes very important. So let me talk about the S3 bucket. S3 bucket is one of the forms of way you would create a storage. A simple example as a correlation to your S3 bucket is your Google Drive. Google Drive is also, you can create the services on the S3 bucket similar to Google Drive. Google Drive by default gives you a 15 GB free storage space, and it has certain restrictions, certain services which are available. So you could create an S3 bucket or a storage setup which is almost equivalent to Google Drive. And the options with the S3 bucket are much more. It has at the enterprise level where large organizations, they have to store medical records or they have to store financial records and all those things. The S3 bucket becomes very handy because it is not only a storage, you can handle the data which is hosted on them as objects. So there are multiple ways of identifying a particular so say for example, in Google Drive, the data which is there is identified by files. So it's a file system based approach, whereas the data which is pushed into an S3 bucket or stored in an S3 bucket is an object. So each and every data is identified as an object. So what really happens when you create a data using an object, you can programmatically access. I can say is for an S3 bucket, which is hosted in Mumbai with the name, say for example, VIT third semester is the bucket name. And for a particular access of a file of the object name xyz.ppt, make it available as a read-only for certain users, make it available as read-write for certain users, and should be downloadable from 9 AM to 9 PM. If you want, and this should get deleted, auto-deleted after 10 days of creation. So you can programmatically manage and appoint the data in such a way that it can be it will be created for few users. It will be given as read only. For few users, it will be given as read write. And after, on the 10th day, it will go to auto deletion. So these are the capabilities which an S3 bucket. So that is where AWS platform or the cloud platforms are very prominent, where if at all you have to configure this in your private cloud, if you want to create an S3 bucket kind of thing on a private cloud, you need to have a big team which will be working only on storage to create policies, to create an object driven storage service for you. All right, so let's start creating an S3 bucket. So I'll just say probably test VIT as the name for the S3 bucket. And I'll choose the region as Asia Pacific Mumbai because that is what it is. In terms of access control list, right now I am not enabling. I'll go with the default. You will learn about the access control list more if you use more on this. Whereas you could clearly define who can access, how they can access, and other things. That is probably in an advanced S3 bucket kind of a discussion we could have. You can block all public access so that the S3 bucket is only accessible only for few people who are access to the console. But if you say that you will unblock all public access, then you can say block public access for objects granted, block public access for buckets and objects granted. You have multiple other policies. So you would be able to create the access control list here and then enable few people. Like I said, a few people will get read-only access, few people can get read-write access. You can create those access policies and assign to them so that you can programmatically manage them. So by default, I'm going with block all public access. And if you want to enable versioning, what exactly is versioning is today, say for example, I have stored some 10 files and 10 files, and tomorrow I go and delete probably 3 files and add 4 more files. So there are about 11 files. But in the background, if I don't enable versioning, what happens is whatever I've deleted on the S3 bucket will not be retrieved. Whereas if I've enabled versioning, I'll be able to retrieve. Or another use cases, if I go and create a file, probably the contents in the file or the I edit those files and I change the content. So you will be able to go find out, okay, Wednesday, what was the state of this file? Will I be able to retrieve? Yes. If I enable versioning, you will be able to do it. Probably I'll enable versioning. And when this data is stored in the S3 bucket, should it be encrypted or not encrypted? Means when this data is at rest inside the S3 bucket, you can enable encryption or disable encryption. Why this enable thing is really coming into the picture? Because of if you're storing any kind of personally identifiable information like credit card information or financial transactions or some data which if somebody gets an access to that particular storage will still not be used because you have enabled encryption. The only downside of the encryption is it would induce a bit of latency, or it will induce a bit of additional processing for retrieving the data as well as storing the data or writing the data. In that way, it will be slightly slower, but it all depends upon the utility. If you want to enable encryption, it will be slightly slower as compared to for the storage retrieval and writing when it is disabled. So I could create an S3 bucket. It says that the test VIT bucket is already available. Looks like somebody might have used that. I would just say, okay, what is the time now? So 2010. So I'm just creating the bucket with test VIT 2010. You could possibly take some other name of the bucket so that you will be able to access it. Yes, the S3 bucket is created. So here I could upload the data. Say, for example, if I upload, I'll like similar to your Google Drive, I'll be able to add the files from my local machine to this one. Say, for example, I'm just uploading some random data. I can and I can retrieve the data, or I can make it available to any users. And programmatically, there are many options within, say, for example, the S3 where you have this part. So did I upload the data? No. All right. So one of the file is uploaded. So these files are there. Now, what this would act as a storage, but how will this data work for me? For which you have multiple other ways and means of managing this data. First comes the permissions. You could act multiple blocking the public access. You can create multiple policies where you could allow certain set of users and disallow certain users. You would be able to do it. Who owns that particular what is the ownership? Somebody will have a read-write ownership, somebody will have a read-only ownership, and you can create a list. If I were to say the 10 people of the VIT from a particular batch, batch 1 will be loaded here as users, and say, okay, batch 1, they'll get a read-only access, batch 2 will get read-write access. I'll be able to do that also. You can spend some time on this in a later point of time. And there are other, say, for example, I can do management. So there's something called as the life cycle management of this particular data. Means how, whenever this object is created, what should be the lifetime of that particular object? And see, by default, if I don't enable that, until unless I go delete this file, this will be available. But if I do a life cycle, then I'll be able to create multiple ways of managing that data. So let me go create a life cycle rule. Test life cycle. You can see VIT as a prefix. All right. So what should I exactly do to this particular data? So I would say one is I would move this current version of objects between the storage classes. This is one such life cycle. I will be explaining probably in detail. Here is the interesting part. When I upload the data, the Excel sheet which I uploaded can move from one storage type to another storage type. If you remember earlier, I had showed for an SDT it is quite cheaper, for a SSD it is quite costlier. Here there are much more important parts of it. So today, if I create the data, so say for example here, there's something called as intelligent tiering, there is called a zone, there's something called as glacier, glacier flexible retrieval, glacier deep archive. There are multiple ways this data can be stored. So I will say that the first 10 days, it should get stored or in a standard add transition. And then probably I'll say the next 12 days, it should get stored in an glacier instant retrieval. And then in a deep archive, it will get stored in for 5 days before it is deleted. So you can create this rule. Okay. All right, this is the life cycle I've created. I can say create rule. Okay. It says that minimum of 30 days is required for this one. Okay, I'll make it as 30. Here also it says that minimum of 30 days. Here it says minimum of 90 days.
Greater than 30 would be required.
Okay.
Greater than each lab.
31 must be at least 30 more than the value. Okay, all right. So it's should be 61, and then it should be 90 more than that. So it is 91. Now 120. The integer value of the glacier table must be at least 90 more than the value of this one. Okay, 60 plus 90. It should be 152. Yeah. So yeah, I could say so that this will be very much to access on a daily purposes, probably first 30 days. And after that, for next 60 days, you can have intermittent access. And probably after that, only in certain cases, you might access it. That is why you're moving it to an archive. And you can create this rule. And you can apply this rule. Okay. So this rule has been created. And let me see, how do I apply this rule? Yeah, the rule is already applied, right, Rishi?
Yes, it is applied.
Yeah, the rule is already applied because yes, this is enabled. All right. So this is the ways and means where you could configure your data, because today I'm talking about one S3 bucket. In a typical scenario, you will have S3 buckets which are about 1,000, 10,000, and you will not have someone manually come and create the S3 buckets. You will programmatically using your infrastructure as a code, you will come and create multiple buckets, which will be part of multiple divisions of your organization. Multiple data points would be there. Few S3 buckets will be available for public and all those things. In order to programmatically access, all these options are there. Obviously, you could go through that one by one. In the interest of time, probably I'll not cover them entirely. Meanwhile, if at all you have any questions, if the chat is enabled, probably keep posting it. Looks like Q&A we don't have, but what is the best way for learning much more about it? Probably you could go to YouTube and talk about multiple options where you could choose your S3 bucket. You could practice it. Or there are ways, a lot of documentation out there in the to practice it. So this is about S3. Another basic building block I could talk about is your databases. Normally what happens is if you go to a EC2 machine, which is nothing but your server, like you have your server, you can install a database on this machine and start using it. Obviously, that is a very traditional way of using it. What AWS has is AWS as its platform as a service where it will provide database as a service. So let's look into what exactly is database as a service. So basically, when I create a database on my laptop, it is just a database, only I have access to it, nothing else. But if I say similar to the storage experience which I talked about earlier, if 20 people wants to access this particular database from my laptop, I need to have a better operating system. I need to have a better fault tolerance on the database. If these 20 people are spread across multiple geographies, then I need to have a good network, as well as I need to have interfaces where everybody could access this database. And if these 20 users want to programmatically access this database, obviously, and it should be available 24/7. So I need to make sure that this database, even if it is failing, it will fail over to another machine. So I need to have one more laptop or one more server, which could take over the load when one of the disk fails, or CPU fails, or a power down, and all those things. So that is where database as a service, which is there, which has come. So AWS RDS is the answer for such requirement. So what are the types of databases which has? It has about 20 different types of databases which are there. And let's go create one of the database. So once again, what exactly is RDS all about? We'll go to pricing, because anytime you want to do any kind of planning, you need to always go to AWS pricing first. Understand how the if at all, if I have to create a service, how does it charge, how much it will charge. Based on that, I'll be able to use it. So once again, I'm creating the region in Asia Pacific Mumbai, and here instead of earlier I did RDS EC2, I am using RDS. So here you have, say for example, multiple RDSs which are there. So you have database for Oracle, you have for Microsoft SQL Server, you have MariaDB, you have MySQL, you have Oracle, regular Oracle, earlier was a custom Oracle, you have for PostgreSQL. So there is SQL Server, there is AWS own proprietary AWS Outpost, there is Kinesis data, and there are like many such RDS databases which are available. So for convenience purpose, let me say MySQL. So I want to have a database as a service from MySQL, so I can find out what is my quantity. So here by default it is showing some example which is about 40 vCPUs, 160 GB of memory. I don't want this. Let me say I want it using T2.micro. So this is a very smallest one, and I'm saying what would be the utilization. I'll say it is running under every time up and running. So this is where it comes to the picture. If you want to have a fault tolerant database, which would say that if one part of the database fails, it should fail over to another part, then you choose a multi-AZ. Or if you say that I am not really worried about failure, it can be created out of one place itself, I can use a single AZ. And obviously there are models, pricing models for on-demand as well as reserved. So you will learn about the reserved probably in the later on point of time in some kind of advanced workshops. So let's go with on-demand and let's see what's the calculations. If the database would be charged, if I am running a database using AWS RDS, it will be charging me 0.024 per hour. And if I'm running it for 24/7 for an entire month, it will be charging me $17.52. And of course, what is the storage which I'm using? So let me have a lower storage. Now, I've told you, you can use various sizes of storage, and so another thing is you would want to see is, say for example, it will say that for every GB of storage, I have to pay for a month 0.131 USD. So I'll be charged for 8 GB 1.05 USD per month. And if you want to back up, how much of data you want to back up? If I put say for example 10 GB, it will give me a calculation of how much you will be charging on the backup. And if you want to take snapshots are nothing but a point in time backup of any kind of thing. So how much of GB of up to how much of GB you would be doing it. So if you see the calculation, you will be charged almost $0.01 per month for a GB. So you'll be charged this much. So net, if you see, if you run it for the entire month, it will be charging me $44.44 because I've because of multiple types of services or what do you call things which I've enabled, you will be seeing these are the things. So how do I change it? Say, for example, I'm taking on demand. I'm disabling backup. I'm disabling any kind of snapshot. All right. And I'm still using a T2 micro and on this one. So update. It will reduce. It says 18.57. So planning for before starting any kind of cloud service is important. And let's go create. Let's go create a RDS instance, a database. So as I told earlier, we were doing a planning for MySQL. So I'll be creating a MySQL database. What is the edition which we'll be using? There are multiple editions which are there. Community edition or the proprietary edition. So let's choose the community edition only. And for what purpose you'll be using it? So there are some standard templates which are there. So for production purpose, it will enable multiple AZ and other things. So let's go with the free tier, where it will just give you a basic instance. Say, for example, if you create for dev and test instance, it will be created in a multiple network and multiple other things are there. So say, for example, as soon as you choose the free tier, see here, the deployment options are disabled. Probably if I choose a dev test, you could say single, you can create, instead of creating a database standalone, you can create a cluster, or you can create a database which multiple zones, or it could be a single DB. Since I'm using a free tier, it will disable all these things, and I can have additional database settings. All right. So what should be the database identifier? I'm just giving a test. Excuse me. What should be the admin credentials? I would say I'll give you as a password ADM. Okay. And there is also options of creating what kind of classes are there, where if at all you choose this configuration in terms of bustable classes, it will go to the next version. So all right, storage, how much of storage you want to allocate? Probably I'll say for inside the database. One is for the machine, I had allocated some storage. So inside the machine, so I could say probably say 8 GB itself, or okay, minimum value it says 20. So I'll allocate this 20. Enable auto scaling, probably I'll disable. Because I don't want to really auto scale any kind of this one, because it is a test. So don't connect to an EC2 compute resource or connect to an EC2 compute resource. I could do any of them. I can choose which is the server I could want to connect. Looks like the AWS machine which had earlier is not up and running. I could possibly start it and then I could do it, or else probably I could do it standalone, probably look into it later on. So let it be on a default VPC. In that way, you will have the server which you had earlier created as well as the storage on the same network, so that interaction could be easy. You want this database to be public access, depending upon how it is. By default, it is no, and let's have it as no itself. Until unless you know exactly how to manage your database, don't create them. And obviously, how do you want to access this database using password authentication? You've already created the database, and obviously you're supposed to go through this in detail, saying that you will be actually incurring this much of cost. So that is where they say before creating a database, make sure that you would go through the pricing to do the proper planning. And let me create the database. So creation of database will take some time because it has to not only just create a server, it will also go create a and configure the database. So this is almost coming to the end of our hands-on training, where you will be see what you learned is you created a server, you created an storage, and you created the database. This is the basic building blocks of any kind of an to host any application, host any platform, or set up anything. You will be able to use this. So using which this is, since it is the basic building blocks, you will any kind of cloud services which you would want to use. It could be, say, for example, in a DevOps kind of a scenario where you would want to create multiple what do you call servers programmatically, manage, create load balancing, create vertical or horizontal scaling. All these things would be, you will use the same basic building blocks. Or if you are hosting any applications, web application or a website or something like that, you would be using a web server, which will be public. You will be having application server, which could be on a private, and you will have a database which will be connected. So it will be a 3-tier architecture. If you're using it in a data science kind of scenario, you would be running the data science workloads or machine learning workloads, where you would choose what kind of CPU memory you need to use so that your programs run very efficiently. Or if you're running it in a big data kind of scenario, you should have multiple pool of such resources which could say, for example, the jobs which are submitted would go to multiple nodes, get it processed, and then once again come back and be available as a big data file system. Or it could be in terms of cyber, any kind of security kind of scenario where retrieval of data or storing of data should be secure through secure channels. And somebody accessing this data should be using some kind of security credentials where you will have keys, which will have a private public key where you will access the data on an S3 bucket. That also is another thing which could be also as one of the use case. So you'll go one after the other, multiple use cases for creating this. So all we have covered till now is the basic building blocks, and you will be able to access them. So how to access the database? Obviously, you could go through some videos if at all you want, because it is still creating. It will take some time. I'm not sure if you would be able to ask any questions because question and answer is not enabled. Probably what I'll do is you could take some questions. If somebody wants to unmute and ask a question, please feel free.
Guys, if you have any doubts, please raise your hand so that we give you the chance to unmute yourselves.
Yeah. So Chandra, till now, how many users have been actively using the lab? Can you say it from the platform side?
Yeah, as of now, I can say 8 participants, have started the challenge labs, and yeah, 1 participant has submitted the challenge, and remaining 7 people are working on the challenges.
Yeah, actually, you're not supposed to work on the challenges. You're supposed to work on the playground which I provided. Challenges after this session, you could go and take on the challenges. I'm sure if 70 people are out of, how many? So totally only, out of 70 people, you have only 8 labs which have been created on the.
Yes, sir. Yes, Arun. I think a student might be, seeing the live demo, and probably after this session or yeah, we have to request them to go and start the lab.
Yeah, because we have 70 people who are logging in. I expected more number of people to start using this, because our capability of our platform is you can have about even 1,000 people using our labs from a platform. And exclusively, we have made it available for VIT students because I want each and every one to get first-hand experience on the labs. Hopefully, since we will make it available till later on point of time, you will be able to do. So what next? As Chandra suggested, you will have access to this course, which has availability for an hands-on lab where you will be able to go explore and do it. So guys, please keep in mind, you will be using this lab only for exploring and testing or whatever experimenting, but you will be using this labs to take the challenges. And what exactly is the challenge? I'll talk about it. So say, for example, for demo purposes, I'll be using one over here. So you take a challenge like this, when you will be provided a certain kind of a scenario. Since you've already practiced it using the other login which you have, that is for practice, this you will take only for assessment. If I do a start challenge, you have only 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, you are supposed to finish this challenge. What is the challenge says that you have to create a S3 bucket in a US2 region, Ohio. Earlier, I was creating it in this one. Create the name of the bucket starting with the prefix of S3 bucket, and make the S3 bucket publicly accessible. Create a folder S3_test inside the bucket, and in the folder create a file s3intro_txt. Make sure this s3intro_txt is publicly accessible, which means that you need to configure this. This you need to configure, and you will have 20 minutes. Before 20 minutes, you have to come and submit the challenge, and obviously you will get the results. You will get the results here itself, and you have 2 attempts. So once if you have missed out on anything, it will give you the results then and there itself, whether you have created a US2 region, whether you have created the name of the S3 bucket with the prefix, this one, and all those things. You will get the results. You will get an option to do it once again, if at all within the 20 minutes. If you are not able to do it in 20 minutes, if you have done it only half of it, you have done only these many of it, the results will reflect only that much. So I will pause here to see if you have any questions related to the assessment. Please don't attempt the assessment until and unless you have done the practice. Practice is very important. So please do the practice using this lab. You can do the practice how many ever times you want. You can create 1 bucket, 2 buckets, you can create it. But if you want to take this assessments, make sure that you've done enough practice and then go to it. Obviously, if you are not able to follow, or you did not really follow whatever I had created, so you can go to YouTube and find out how do you create a server, or how do you create a S3 bucket, or how do you create a RDS. You will be able to find the steps there also. So it's not that difficult. So say, for example, for RDS also, you have a challenge where you have to create RDS database, which is of MySQL, particular version, and a US East to A region. And this is the size you need to have. This is a database name you should have. This is the password, and you have to allocate 10 GB. And so you should make it publicly accessible. So this is a challenge. You have to also do it in 20 minutes. And yeah, there is EC2 challenge also. You also have to do it in 20 minutes, and each challenge is of 2 minutes each, and you should be able to finish it. But once again, I'm reiterating, please don't attempt the challenge until unless you have done hands-on experience. So say, for example, if you have an S3 and you want to attempt it, you don't want to attempt the challenge, you can do the same set of things on the previous lab which I've given. Don't attempt the challenge till the time you are confident of doing a particular type of activity. All right, so I'll pause here to see if there are any questions since I've been continuously talking. Let's see if anybody has any questions. You can post it here. Obviously, you don't have that option of question Q&A, but you can unmute and probably ask any questions if you have. Probably from the faculty, professors, sir, any questions, Ganesh sir? So Jasvita or anybody, you want to unmute and probably give some quick feedback of what exactly are you facing any challenge, or you're guys okay? Because we see only some 8 to 9 people have actually attempted or actually using the labs. Looks like 60 plus people who are there need to really log in and start using the labs.
Looks like no one has any doubts. Some of them are facing internet issues. Maybe that's why they have been lagging in the progress. If there are any doubts, they will either contact you through LinkedIn profiles, or they will see
probably
the YouTube videos.
One of you guys could take those questions and route it through Mira, because obviously once we get out of this call, you would not have direct access with us. But most of the things are self-explanatory. But still, if you have any questions, you can route it through Mira. My support team will look into it and provide you support.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, I think that's the end of the session. This was on the basics of AWS. Basics is very important. Once you have a good hands-on experience on the basics, we could probably plan few more sessions in the coming days or months where we could take one particular topic and have people work on those, building some solutions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for all the effort you have put into show us the workshop. So every day holds the possibility of a miracle. So keep hoping for the best and keep shining. On behalf of our entire NGC club and VIT, I would like to thank our honorable speaker. Thank you, sir, for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day. Special thanks to our club faculty coordinator, Ganesh Reddy sir, Prabha Selvaraj ma'am, and Sudhir sir for supporting us on this Friday workshop. And last but not the least, I would like to extend my gratitude to our audience for making this webinar a successful one. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, and also make sure we have already announced that there'll be goodies for someone who creates it. Submits all the assessments, or successfully finish all the assessments, as well as whoever does it faster probably will get a prize also. Please watch out for the space. Make sure that you have enough practice. It's not really important to have won the prize. It is very important for you to do hands-on. Please keep in mind any kind of skill which you will be mastering only if you do hands-on, and that is what 𝐂𝐿 stands for, where we call our platform as 𝐂𝐿 Hands-On Platform. So from a platform, you could use AWS services, you could use Azure services, you could use Google Cloud services. You could use data science services, big data services, data engineering services, cybersecurity services. All those things can be used from our platform. And we are actually working with quite a few universities and colleges to provide their lab services. Like NIT University, we are providing the lab services from our platform. Quite a few affiliated services by other edtechs also are provided out of our platform. So this is a platform where you'll have control on all the services. Like right now, Chandra is able to see of how many people are actually using the service. And you could do assessments. Right now, we have given you assessments. We'll be able to find out how many people have attempted the assessment and how many people have successfully completed the assessments. We have that the platform capability is there. So in a way, we are showcasing our platform. At the same time, we are quite intrigued that we have to make sure that everybody gets their own lab console and are able to practice and gain hands-on knowledge. That is where we aim at. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I wish we had the chat option available. We could have made it much more interactive, but probably next time we should will take care of that part.
Sir, hello, Arun Reddy sir, thank you so much for your valuable time and you have given insights about that how the AWS works and how to launch an instance, how to create a bucket. It's really helpful for the students. I think at this stage, if they learn these things, definitely they can create their own applications in AWS, and they can be like any type of service providers like SaaS, PaaS, IaaS. So these sort of lab experiments really help us, our students, to think in the next level so that they can be a clear-cut difference between others and the people who don't have any hands-on. The people who have an hands-on, definitely there is a huge difference, and confidence levels also very high. So your presentation is really helpful, sir. Our students, I think we have recorded these videos and we are going to share these videos to our students, and even the link you have shared for registering these labs also, we are going to do that. I think 99 students are registered for this club. They are very actively participating all the club activities. So definitely these 99 students, they are going to register for this labs, and they are going to do all the experiments you have posted. They are going to do all the challenges as well. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your.
So the labs will be open till tomorrow 6 p.m. Make
Yes,
sure
sir.
that everybody uses these labs. Of course,
Yes, sir.
it is an expense from our side, so we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it is available for a limited time. At the
Yes,
same
sir.
time, please don't post these credentials anywhere in the outside GitHub or anywhere. Please keep it with you, because
Yes, sir.
once you start post these credentials outside, you will be prone to any kind of some kind of attacks.
Yes, sir.
So it is very important to keep this under check.
Yes, sir. Because getting an AWS account, we required a credit card. So this sort of platform really help the student. Without credit card, they can access
Right.
AWS resources. It's very good actually. So definitely our students will actively participate in that completion of all the experiments, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable talk. And we'll meet in future, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, surely, surely.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, VITP, for
Thank you,
inviting
everyone.
us.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, and all the best.
Yeah,
Thank
Inviti,
you,
you can
sir.
reach out to me if you have any question regarding assessment. You can collect the questions and you can reach out to me.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, all.
Yeah, thank you all students. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, the session is officially ended. You can leave the meet now.